this injury, as awful as the injury is itself, like it presented such a great opportunity for me to pivot and actually take the leap of faith and start going for this content career, that I had always kind of dreamed about doing. And so I don't want to say I use it as like an excuse to get my head start, but that was really the thing that was like, okay, like you're going to want to look back on how far you've come, from the moment you got hurt through all the hard stuff in between. And then that moment that I'm still chasing after, which is finally getting back on the runway. I think it's also a really cool moment to be able to look back on all the videos and the progress that I've made. So I think that was a huge factor in wanting to document it.
Be the story. Keith, it's so good to see you. How are you doing, my friend?
Doing good. Glad to be back, Jay. I'm excited for today.
Yeah, we're excited. You're not on the road. We have a very special guest, UCF's Hayley Manners. Hayley, how are you doing? And welcome to the show.
Hello, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here today as well.
Yeah, we're really excited. This show, Keith and I were talking before this. You're such a really talented storyteller. You're consistent. And I think for anyone starting out who's looking for someone like that they can pattern themselves after, that's you.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot.
Yeah.
I'll try.
All right, Keith. Keith, you have some special announcements for us, and just can't wait for this.
Yeah, I'm excited to be on the show again and to have Hayley on here, but want to give a little shout out to Influxer for supporting the show. If you're a student athlete and you're trying to build up your brand and you're still trying to figure out how to monetize everything, Influxer is one of the deals that's out there. It's not just about the deals, it's also about the merch that you do. Influxer is one of the smartest things you can do because there's no cost to it and there's a full setup where you can sell hoodies, jerseys, hoodies, tees, customized stuff, no upfront costs. And, best part, you keep getting paid every time somebody buys something to support you. So whether you're a parent, you're a student athlete, you're looking to find a massive opportunity for yourself, Influxer, check it out.
Appreciate you guys. All right, I'm really excited. We have here you long jump, you triple jump. You've previously run on the 4x1. Man, I mean, this is my wheelhouse, Keith. We have another track athlete. As a former D1 track athlete, my heart is full right now.
Yeah, you're just a little giddy about this one, Jay. I love having all the track athletes. I love it.
Oh, wait, have we had track athletes? Oh, that's right. You do run track, Hayley.
Yes, I am a track junkie as well. So anything that has to do with the sport, love to talk about it.
Yeah, and we're going to unpack the show. You're also, and we're going to get into it so we don't have to do a deep dive, but from Canada, you've won a bunch of honors there. I mean, how special is that for you?
I mean, it's incredible. It's always really been a dream of mine to represent Canada, and I hope that I get to do that one day. But I feel like I have been able to at least represent on the college front at this point, which is pretty cool. But yes, I am very, very grateful to have one national title under my belt. So that's probably my biggest accomplishment to date. But yeah, looking forward to getting healthy and seeing what opportunities come in the future.
All right. I love that. I love that. I love that. All right, guys, we're going to jump right into it. Today's episode, if you are an athlete figuring out NIL, before you start, let me tell you this. Before you get started, you don't have to figure it out. You just have to do, because the ones who win, they show up, they take action, and they build momentum. Today, we're breaking down exactly how to do that with Hayley Manners. All right. Today's episode is for all of those athletes that we just talked about, but I have to ask you this. You're a national champion, you're a UCF star, you're a consistent NIL figure. Welcome to the show. And for all of you guys that are out there, look at Hayley and look at yourself and see what's possible. So, got to ask you this. You love what you're doing. You're building your brand as you go. Let's talk about this. Most athletes are stuck. They think they need this master plan before they get started. And we talked about the ones who are winning, they're just doing. What was the moment for you that you thought, man, I think I can do this?
Yeah, you know what? It it's kind of crazy to look back and think about the time in my life where I was like, you know, really deciding that I'm going to dive in deep and do this whole content thing. And to be honest, I'm sure a lot of athletes out there can relate, but I genuinely thought it was the cringiest thing in the world to post on Instagram Reels. Like, I was like, Instagram is supposed to be like your, you know, special moments, you know, your best pictures and all that. And, you know, to a certain degree, I still kind of have those feelings. But at the same time, I was like, you'll never catch me posting an Instagram Reel. But after I got injured back in December of 2023, I was like, you know what? I've always wanted to do the content thing. And I honestly have nothing to lose at this point because I'm not going to be able to compete or travel with my team. So I might as well document my journey, and hopefully, you know, it would resonate with people out there, which it has. And I'm super grateful for that. But yeah, it was kind of like a nothing left to lose type of thing. And I just dove right into it.
And just for context for everybody, the way I found you, just searching for people who are doing, I see you consistently on Instagram Reels, TikTok, YouTube, and we're going to get into that. You're consistent on YouTube. I'm not sure what else you're on. Just talk about that, because you are very consistent. And I know a lot of people look at it and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so scared. What are my teammates going to think? What are the people back at home think? How did you break beyond that and just get started and getting out there on all the different platforms?
Yeah, I think honestly, it's a huge compliment to hear the word consistent, first of all, because that's probably the hardest part of staying on top of your content and just feeling like you have enough like quality content to post consistently. So it's definitely something I'm still kind of going back and forth on. But when it comes to like the different social media platforms, I think actually one of my faults when I first started was trying to do it all and trying to do it all well. And I just really feel like I kind of burnt out a little bit. And so I kind of stuck to Instagram for a while. I started building some really great momentum there. And so Instagram instantly became my favorite platform. I would say TikTok was a little bit tougher just because I think my account, like I've had it since the app was called Musically. So I don't know if that has anything to do with like, you know, my growth on that account, but I just haven't been able to hit the right algorithm. And so kind of given up on that one. But I just think it's a matter of finding which platform you feel like you can express yourself best on. And so experimenting with the different ones out there, I think is kind of just part of the process. Like you're just going to have to try it out. You know, Snapchat is another one that I think is very underrated for creators. There's a huge monetization program. And I didn't learn about that until, I don't know, maybe like 6 months ago, but and I'm not monetized yet there, but there's so much potential, and it's just a completely different game than Instagram and YouTube and all that. But yeah, I would say you just got to kind of test the waters, see what sticks, and see where, you know, you can kind of build some momentum.
You hit on a key word there, potential. You know, one of the things I love, you know, doing is, you know, traveling the country, getting to speak to all these student athletes. And I think that's one thing I see a lot of athletes struggle with, is not understanding the potential that's out there for them with NIL. And so I like seeing student athletes start early, build their content. You know, maybe they don't have a deal ready right yet, but they got to build their platform. They got to build their audience. And that, you know, that's really what gets them going. And you clearly have garnered that, and your consistency and like the way you're even talking about the platforms, it's impressive. So I guess, you know, do you remember that moment that it struck you, hey, there's something here for me if I get going on this and start building an audience now, start building my platform?
Yeah, I'm trying to think back because, like I said, I remember around this time last year is when I started kind of seeing that momentum on Instagram. I was posting the cringy reels. I was getting over all of that. And, you know, some of the craziest reels that I would never think would go viral just started catching the eyes of so many people. I think I've got a couple of videos that are over 1 million views at this point. And I literally would set up the camera, record maybe a 5-second video, and then have like a caption that explains, you know, one of the things that I learned from being injured as a student athlete, or something I learned about building your brand. Like it would just be kind of like a short blurb of that. And like millions of people saw this and like resonated with it or DM'd me about it. And I was kind of like, wow, maybe my voice and my influence on these platforms can actually like, one, help others, but also be interesting for them. So I think that was probably the moment where I was like, all right, let's keep at it. Let's make a plan and let's try and tackle this, the right way rather than just going at it, day by day. So
love it.
Yeah. And one of the things that stands out for me, I've figured out when the difference between being like average and being an elite is really what's between your ears, right? And it's mindset. It's how we're looking at things, how we're thinking about things. And a lot of athletes, is we're saying, are afraid of what people might think, fear of putting themselves out there. And did you struggle with that? And what advice do you have for people who are going through that experience?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember being like kind of in this awkward space where you want to post the content, but you don't know what people are going to think about it. You don't know if people are going to be like, oh, she's trying to be an influencer. Like, what is she doing? She's getting like 50 views. But it's like, the truth is, all of your favorite big name, big time creators started at that point and had to kind of go through that phase of like feeling awkward posting their content. And I've even seen people, I never did this myself, but some people would just like block their family and friends so that they actually don't have to see their content while they're growing. I never took it to that extreme, but I've seen people do that, or even start with a brand new account, which I think is also very challenging. But yeah, it's just kind of crazy to think about that moment where you're kind of like, okay, I'm really doing this. You just kind of have to let it happen. And, with any new thing or something that you're trying to start up, whether it's personal brand or anything like that, there's going to be, outside opinions. And I think it's really important to just kind of think about why you're doing this, what your goals are, and just kind of reel it back into that and have that be like the driving factor to keep going. Honestly, it's really hard to block out the noise sometimes, especially if you're not surrounded by a community of people who kind of understand what you're doing. But it's definitely possible. And, follow your favorite influencers, get inspiration from them, do all those things.
Yeah, I think you hit on it so it's in such a major way. For anybody watching this, man, forget about what your family think, what your parents think, all the people that you're worried about. It doesn't really matter. Focus on your legacy, right? Like you don't want to go through later and be 85 years old and look back and say, man, what if I would have posted that content? What if I would have built that legacy? And when I look at you, right, one of the things I absolutely love on this legacy part, I got to give you a shout out. You have 964, almost 1,000 subscribers on YouTube in, it sounds like, about a year. And you're doing things, you're documenting your life, day in the life, makeup tour, week in my life vlog, Q&A, how to get a job in sports, man. Like Keith, she's doing everything we talk about. I just get excited. I can't control myself because this is it. This is documenting. How did you get to the part of documenting your life rather than trying to create?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that I looked kind of, getting inspiration from other influencers. Again, I think that was a huge part of it. I've always been super excited about, the opportunity to vlog or document like different parts of my life. And I think this injury, as awful as the injury is itself, like it presented such a great opportunity for me to pivot and actually take the leap of faith and start going for this content career, that I had always kind of dreamed about doing. And so I don't want to say I use it as like an excuse to get my head start, but that was really the thing that was like, okay, like you're going to want to look back on how far you've come, from the moment you got hurt through all the hard stuff in between. And then that moment that I'm still chasing after, which is finally getting back on the runway. I think it's also a really cool moment to be able to look back on all the videos and the progress that I've made. So I think that was a huge factor in wanting to document it.
And Jay, I'm going to add, one of the things that I commonly see as a mistake for student athletes is they assume that everybody knows what that student athlete life is about. They assume, generally speaking, I think sometimes the general public out there, they hear NIL, they think of student athletes with their hand out saying, gimme, gimme, gimme. What they don't see is the struggle. They don't see this day-to-day thing. They don't see the injuries and having to come back from that stuff. That's what I love about Hayley's story. And that's what I love about her approach is it humanizes and it tosses those assumptions away where the general public, folks, okay, wait a second now. She's really getting after it. She has to grind, all aspects of life, academics. I mean, she's pursuing her MBA right now. That's impressive.
Thank you.
I mean, doing that, overcoming injury, doing all this, there's not this inherent, hey, I deserve something here. Hey, I got to work at it. I think that's what people love about your story. And it's easy to see why anybody would want to buy into that. And I wish more student athletes understood you got to toss those assumptions aside. So kudos to you for recognizing that. And just like Jay said, all the different things, we've been preaching for a while here. You're doing it.
Thank you. No, it means a lot. And honestly, it's kind of funny that you touched on the whole MBA part of it, because I am actually just finishing up my dual master's degree program, which has been super exciting and rewarding. But I honestly think it's given me a bit of a leg up in terms of like the NIL stuff, because I've been able to see kind of like what the business part of it actually looks like, instead of just being that student athlete being like, hey, like how much you're going to pay me for a brand deal, like I see from the business side how things work and what brands maybe would expect of an athlete and what they're looking for in somebody who they would like to promote their product or whatever the case may be. And so I've kind of used that as inspiration and fuel to kind of curate my content in a way that would, make a brand reach out one day and be like, hey, like we love your videos when you document like, day whatever until you're back on the runway. Like, how can you integrate our product into those videos organically? So
and I absolutely love that as well. One of the things that you're just talking about is just being an executor. I think people are spending too much time thinking, strategizing. And one of the things that people need to do is create the content. Just press publish, because you're not going to know what's going to hit. And this happens to me. I think sometimes I spend all this time, I edit it, I get the thumbnail perfect. On Instagram, it blows up. On TikTok, it's and then sometimes it's the other way around. Or sometimes they both do that, and then it blows up on YouTube Shorts, right? You've experienced this, right?
Yes.
And you only know this as a practitioner. Can you speak to that?
Absolutely. That is such a great point, because Instagram Reels, TikTok, and YouTube Shorts are all like the same concept, but completely different algorithms. Like it really does just take like a matter of practicing and figuring things out, getting content out there that is huge to really see what sticks on what platform. And I mean, in my own experience, I have noticed that on Instagram, people really value the kind of long caption sometimes. Maybe it's a short video that, while someone's reading the caption, the video is just playing in the background, and that increases your watch time and all of those things. So I found that to be pretty successful on Instagram. TikTok, again, like I said, I'm still playing with it. I don't want to say I've completely given up, because I was literally just live on TikTok like an hour ago, but I just like kind of mess around with that one and post whenever. So it's kind of like a, whatever hits. And then YouTube Shorts, it's really all about like what's on screen. And I feel like the trending audio, because you can't do long captions for YouTube Shorts. So if you, take your Instagram caption from the same video and you somehow put it on the screen for YouTube Shorts, that's going to be what really makes it successful in my experience.
So what's the strategy for being consistent with all of this stuff? I mean, there's a lot of athletes that struggle with the time commitment, and, they post a few times and they're like, I don't have the time or the energy for this. How do you stay locked in? How do you stay consistent?
Yeah, I think, once again, I'm a very type A person. So I have everything organized. I have a content calendar. I know it sounds crazy, but if you want to treat, NIL and building your brand kind of like a serious thing, it's something that I've actually really valued and can look back on to be like, hey, like this video actually did really well. Like, let's do something again like that in the future, or let's even repost that video because people loved it. And, maybe I'll find a new audience of people who will also like it. But a content calendar has been my saving grace so that I can track, especially for YouTube. Being consistent on YouTube was like number one goal for my content this year. And I've been posting every Monday at 8 p.m. so far. So check it out. Tomorrow we'll have another video, but
let's go.
shameless self promo. But yeah, it's just a matter of kind of keeping your ideas organized, and then on top of that, making sure that you try to stay inspired, because if you aren't feeling like you have anything interesting to post, then it's going to be really difficult to kind of pick up the camera and record anything. So I would say try your best to stay inspired, whether that's hopping on social media and typing in keywords, finding ideas or trending audios of stuff that people are doing that you can maybe put your own spin on. And then just keeping all of those ideas organized so that you can go, when you feel ready and comfortable to get in front of the camera and just record a bunch of different videos so that you have stuff to post.
I love it. I love it. And I want to talk about this. One of the emphasis for today is mindset, because I found that that's everything. As we're out, Keith and I are talking to student athletes. It's one of the things that keep people from moving forward. So I want to talk about that. My story is, and Keith's probably tired of hearing of this, I had great parents, I had a great mom. She was a track coach and just allowed me to fail. And so now as an adult, I'm not scared of getting in the dirt, of trying new things, whether it's a new podcast or Keith and I doing coffee with Brand&Athlete, a live coaching show, because I'm ready to take the L's. I don't care, because that's how I know I'm going to win. And I can do that, and take L after L after L. And I say that because I look at your content and I see you putting yourself out there. For you, how are you able to be able to know that, hey, I may publish this, one of your videos? I'm gonna give you another plug. It is my first YouTube video, Q&A, and you have like this cool picture. It's like I'm doing this thing, which is real. How did you get the ability, as someone who's a national champion, right? Who is a top end athlete, but who also is not afraid to take the L?
Yeah, I mean, I think it just goes back to kind of blocking out the outside noise and really focusing on kind of what your goals are for content creation. And I think honestly, this is probably a really important point to bring up as well, but NIL is not for everyone. Everyone has the potential to do that for sure. But if it's something that you just like, you can never see yourself getting in front of the camera, like maybe it's not for you, But if you kind of have that passion for sharing your story and documenting your journey, even if you have a passion for working with your favorite brands down the line, like this is really something that you're gonna have to just kind of dive in deep into. And like you said, there's gonna be a lot of times where you're gonna take an L and it's your video's not gonna hit, or something that you edited for 3 hours is gonna flop. And honestly, it sucks, it hurts sometimes, but
It does.
there's going to be that video that you maybe spent 10 seconds recording and typing up a funny little caption that's going to, completely blow up and maybe open up some opportunities for you. So I would say, honestly, creating content also has nothing to do with your accolades or how good of an athlete you are. Like there are content creators out there who don't play or start, or who don't have the best stats, that are absolutely killing it on the NIL side because they're sharing their story and they're building this community of people who care about their journey and who want to support them. So I think it's really important to note that as well.
Yeah, and I gotta talk about this real quick. Keith is wanting to talk about you as being an international athlete, so I gotta slip in one question. I love that about what you're saying, but I want to know specifically about you. Like mine is my DNA backup of having this great parents who just like go do it. What within you allows you? What is because what I'm figuring out is there's something about those who are creating content. Was it the way you were raised? Is it your mindset? Is it your experiences that led you to be able to be fearless with content?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I feel like I've always been kind of like a go-getter with everything that I do in life. And I just try to do things kind of at 110% effort, whether I, feel like I'm going to be successful or not with it. My parents have been a huge, support system for me, my sisters and my entire family and friends. But it's always been really nice to have their support for sure, because, I can text the family group chat like, hey, just posted a new YouTube video, like go hype me up, or, help me get the ball rolling. And like, they're going to
Yeah.
support me through all of that. And, I was just saying I was on TikTok live, an hour ago, and my sister joined, like we were, on TikTok live together. Like having that support system has
Mhm.
really been instrumental in kind of moving forward with this. But yeah.
All right, I have to talk about the elephant in the room. You're an international. And for those that don't know, I love working with international student athletes in NIL. This is something I speak pretty often on, and I believe this is the first international student athlete we've had on, Jay.
It is. Haley is the first, hopefully of many.
It's a tricky being an international student athlete is tricky when it comes to NIL. There's there's a lot of different things that are out there. There's a lot of bad information, a lot of misinformation, and there's a lot of folks that just assume. And unfortunately, I do see some of the negative stories that don't make the headlines about student athletes that aren't allowed entry back in the country because they've done something incorrectly when it comes to NIL. So you're an F1 student, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So for those that don't know, that's about 99.9% of the population out there for international students.
No, what is F1? Is that like racing or what are we talking about here?
F1 is the immigration status code. So for students that are coming here, okay. Bear with me, Jay. F1 students, they're there to study first. Athletics is second. Okay. That's very different than some of the other visa classifications that are out there. I know, in the international realm, a lot of people talk about, well, you just go get a P visa or O visa, or you get something else. Okay, 99.9% of the country, that's not realistic. It's not cost efficient for some of those folks. But it does carry a lot of very specific things. Being an F1 student, you're not allowed to do a lot of stuff while you're on U.S. soil. Executing on NIL deals, you're technically not supposed to do it. I'm not going to go into my hour-long soapbox lecture on this.
I'm trying to talk him down now. He keeps on it now. I love this.
Yeah, I know there's YouTube videos out there, me going into the weeds here, but I got to ask you, Haley. I mean, going into this, and you're thinking, okay, I can build up all my content. I can't quite execute on the deals like a domestic student athlete. I have to build up my content, schedule stuff out for when I'm back in Canada, do stuff there. Deflating, or is that kind of keep the ball rolling every day? Hey, just keep building. Like, how do you approach that mindset wise?
No, it's definitely a tricky process because, like you said, like there are a lot of layers to it, and there are a lot of intricate rules when it comes to being an F1 visa student. Especially with the work authorization and the different rules. So it's definitely a tough process. I would say that, some of that has kind of halted some of the opportunities that I've been given, and kind of, I have to explain to the brand like, hey, like would love to represent you guys, or would love to kind of execute this deal. But first of all, like I'm hoping that you ship to Canada, and I hope you can wait, 6 months until I'm back home in order to execute the deal. So a lot of challenges definitely come with that. And it does get a little bit frustrating sometimes when, a cool opportunity comes up, it's time sensitive, and you just can't swing, a quick flight home or anything like that. So you do have to pass up on some of those deals, which I think is probably the most frustrating part, knowing that, your content and consistency, all of that is paying off, and then having to turn down the opportunities when they do come by. I think that's probably the toughest part, but it's definitely something that I've learned to just keep going, keep posting that content, because there are so many things that you can do outside of, landing the deals in order to better yourself and keep building that brand. I know a big part for me has been, speaking engagements. I've been, a panelist on a couple of different, events, whether it's at my school or organizations that I've been a part of. And that's a great way to keep getting my story and name out there. I've had a couple of articles written about me or for me, which I think is really cool as well, because you can, again, just share your story, tap into new audiences and a different community. And so although you're not getting the benefits or the rewards on like the monetary side, that will come eventually. It still is really cool to kind of build up your resume and portfolio for your brand.
Yeah, so well spoken. I'm sorry you're dealing with the frustration of telling companies, hey, can you wait 6 months before I can swing back home? Hey, exactly what's going to happen, though, is Congress is going to pass a law after you're done with UCF.
Of course.
All this is possible, and you passed up for no reason. That's going to happen, right?
Of course. I only spent 6 years in college. Like, they're going to pass it right after I graduate. That's fine.
What's the biggest thing talking about mindset that you've learned? Because sometimes I've learned things that happen to us aren't necessarily things that happen to us. It's an opportunity. It's a learning. What from this experience have you taken away?
Yeah, I would say, like, first thing that comes to mind, sometimes the things that you least expect to work out are the things that are going to help you skyrocket to the next level. And for me, one of those defining moments was definitely attending a conference that was specifically for, student athletes interested in NIL over the summer last year. And I was just, kind of going into it with the mindset of, okay, I'm going to keep, an open mindset. I'm going to try and network, meet a bunch of people, and of course, get some great content out of this, weekend and opportunity. And I think that was honestly one of the, catalysts for some of my success moving forward, because I just met like a whole realm of different people, both athletes and individuals that work on the brand side. And, I've stayed in contact with them. I try to engage and connect with my community directly, whether that's, professionally or just through social media. And it's really paid off for me. And I just feel really grateful to be in a position where I'm at now, because, one of the people that I met from the brands there is now my boss at my job. So, you never expect that to, some little opportunity actually turns into something that you can make a career out of and can actually really, help you jump forward. So I would say keep an open mindset to any opportunity, no matter how big or small, because it can really, one person that you meet or one event that you go to can really change the trajectory.
Yeah, and
I love this mindset, because she's not just thinking about NIL, but she's thinking down the road. And I think that's where a lot of student athletes mess up is, hey, this is about my image and for that future job, where how people see me. And I love this.
And Keith, I want to talk about this too. I know we're talking about the F1 status, which allows immigrants to study full-time in the United States. Let's talk to what are some key takeaways, you guys. You guys are both, you've experienced this, Hayley, you're experiencing it. Keith, you're a subject matter expert. You've been doing this for almost 3 decades. What are some things that you guys feel like would help students who are in this scenario to help them succeed and to be successful?
Yeah, I'll jump in quickly. I think from a student athlete perspective, just maximize every opportunity that you have to kind of build your brand outside of the money making factor. And so, a lot of people kind of get weirded out when I say this, but like student athletes, if you don't have a LinkedIn, go and make one right now. Like that is like your digital resume. It's something that's honestly been probably one of the more important social medias that is not talked about enough, in my opinion. But having that platform and having a good presence over there has really helped me kind of set the foundation for a lot of other things. But really, as an international student, capitalizing on every opportunity that is legal to you in the US while you're here. And so anything on social media where you're posting content, collaborating with other users, you know, if you're posting vlogs on YouTube or daily updates on your Snap story, like all of that is free game. And you have, you know, the ability to share your story to the extent that you would like and as many times as you want. Like all of that stuff is free for you to do and totally okay. But I would also say, you know, focus on the stuff with your academics and athletics, like certain events that you can really capitalize on. Like I was talking about, like those opportunities that you might not think anything of could actually turn into something great. I think that there's opportunities for you to do that both in the classroom and when it comes to your content.
I swear Hayley has like she's capturing a lot of the speeches I do on campuses. I love every bit of this. And so Jay, I think you asked a very important question. Like, you know, what can we learn from all this? And I think for international student athletes in particular, protection, protection, protection. I don't think, you know, it's not the movies where, you know, you get deported, somebody, you know, puts a boot on the door, throws you in handcuffs, throws you on a plane. That's typically not what happens. Typically what happens is international student athletes are going through the port of entry, the airport, and going through customs. You know, I can get a little nerdy with my language sometimes, so I'll try to avoid all that. But, you know, I think, you know, one of the things for international student athletes is you have to always be in defense mode too, because you always have to protect. And it's a little bit different for international students versus domestic. So what I mean by that, Jay, is for international students, when they are executing on a deal, or they are doing, you know, something plugging NIL, they need to make it very clear, hey, I was not in the United States when I did this. You know, so I think there are several apps out there that let you timestamp, date stamp, location stamp, like when you posted something, when you know, have a picture of something. Protection, 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 because it's all about optics. And she, like Hayley, does a tremendous job building her story. It would be a shame to like not execute on it correctly, where she's coming in through the port of entry, a customs officer, you know, grabs a phone, and they're entitled to look at all the social media right there. And it's all about the appearance. And Hayley has said something very critical and important earlier in our conversation. There's a difference between authorized work and unauthorized work. So if it just appears like she's been doing something unauthorized while in the United States, they can deny. And so that's why it's critical to prove, you know, every step of the way, I was not in the United States. I waited till I was back home in Canada. You know, that type of mentality. You know, and that's what I've enjoyed getting to know about Hayley here is she's got that mentality. She's doing the homework. She's got a plan. You heard her, Jay. She's got a whole content calendar. I mean, she knows what she's doing. I love that about this.
Hey, Keith is a reminder too. First of all, shout out to Marquette Law School where he went, because you need somebody in your corner, right? I think this is what I'm thinking as I'm listening, like a Keith, that is helping you play defense so that you can also play offense, right? And have someone. So I think it's great on your campus or wherever you are, find someone. You don't have to worry about it because most campuses have someone, right, no matter the level, that can help you navigate this on your own. So talk to them, right, Keith? And then you guys can chart your course from there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And just jumping in, I would say like it's very good advice to kind of get to know the people in your global or immigration office at your school, because, you know, they're not going to take full responsibility for everything that you do, but they can be really great advisors and a really great resource to help you kind of navigate any challenges that you have. And honestly, something that I'm learning more and more as I approach, you know, graduation and ending my time on an F1 status, that I also think is a conversation that needs to be held more, is, you know, what international student athletes do post-college, right? Like there is such a gray area in that space when it comes to, all right, you're graduated, you're done with your sport. you can either file for OPT and stay here for an extra year, kind of.
Wait. What's OPT? Sorry.
I love it.
For those people at home, what is an OPT?
Here. I love this. Hey, go.
I feel left out here. What's OPT?
OPT is optical practicum training or something like that, or optional practicum training. But it's basically like an extension that you can file for work authorization to stay in the US after you graduate for an additional year. And so that is something that is, very realistic for me personally right now, because my program is finished in May. And so I'm looking at that option so that I don't have to pack up the entire life that I've built here and just go home and start over again, So that's something that I think is very unique to the international student athlete population, and maybe something that's not talked about a ton, because people just kind of forget that after you graduate, like if you're not going pro and you're not getting, a professional league to sign your contract and get you a visa to stay here, like you kind of have to figure it out on your own. So yeah, always be cautious of that as well. And that's definitely something that us internationals have to keep in mind.
And pro tips to the international student athletes that are watching this and listening to these very wise words, very, very wise. Don't wait to file for your OPT until like a week before graduation. That's a huge mistake. This takes time. You have to, it's February right now, right? Or is it March? I'm losing track of the months here, Jay.
It's all the travel, Keith. It's all your travel.
But if you're an international student, you're graduating in May, you should be into this process right now. You should be knowing exactly what to do, because it takes time. And knowing the national landscape right now with the US government, it's going to take some time. So get on it now.
Yeah, I love it. All right, guys, switching up gears a little bit, I want to talk about the future for people, right? One of the things that I hear from people all the time is every excuse you've ever heard. I don't have time. I don't have a camera. I don't know what to talk about. I think those are just excuses. I'm just going to call it right here. We're having a raw conversations. They're just a bunch of bull. Okay. It's a family friendly show, but you know where I'm going with this thing, right? What is the thing that gives you the sense of urgency? Because I think if people, regardless if you're a student athlete, if you're a content creator, the best time to create content is right now. I know you talked about your injury, but what made you say, I need to do this right now?
Yeah, I just feel like, again, going back to kind of my business background and having that being what I studied, like I just learned a lot about the landscape of professional sports and how it's kind of coinciding with influencer marketing and the value that, athletes have in their story and their voice in sports right now and in the marketing landscape. I just feel like there's so much opportunity to kind of carve my own path. And, people bring up the word niche a lot for your content. And I don't really like that word, because I don't like being boxed into doing one thing. Yeah. But I'm really for the idea of creating your own niche and kind of, doing all the different things that you like to do, creating that own little story and have that be, what people know you for. But yeah, I think it's really, really important to just kind of put those excuses aside and reel it back into, again, the reason why that you really want to create content in the first place. And I mean, if anyone needs a little bit of inspiration, like ChatGPT is free. You can use ChatGPT and be like, hey, I'm a student athlete and, I like music or I like coffee, whatever you like to do. And then ask it to help you come up with a content plan. Be like, hey, what should I post on Instagram for the next 3 weeks if this is what I'm doing? Like you can leverage things like that. And then, even when it comes to like vlogging and all that, like I film everything for my YouTube channel with my iPhone. Like I have never bought an expensive camera, although that's something I would like to do one day. I'm still in the, beginning stages of all that. And like, I'm able to do that perfectly fine with just my iPhone, no fancy microphone, and it's still totally possible. So you can really start from scratch with it. You just have to be hungry and eager to get after it. And like you said, Jay, willing to fail. So.
Yeah. And Hayley, I want to go a little bit further on this one. Keith, I'm following up, Keith. But what in it what inside of you said now? Like, I'm trying to get to your mindset. What were you thinking? And the reason why is that I think we all as human beings can have analysis by paralysis by analysis, right? I said it right this time. And right, you go on to these social programs, you go on to TikTok, and all of a sudden you're 4 hours in. Some people do that. What is in your mind though that got you to start? And the reason why I want to nail the start is that's what I think so many people need. What is it within you that's different?
Yeah. I'm trying to think, like, we talked a little bit about how I started this whole content creation stuff. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of at a low point, right? When I had just gotten injured, my season was ripped away from me, and I didn't really know kind of what else I would do to fill my time, because all of a sudden I'm not traveling every weekend. I'm not really practicing with the team because I'm walking around on crutches. So it was just like a completely different lifestyle for me at that point. And I think realizing that, there are enough hours in a day to kind of make time for something that you're passionate about or something that you really would like to pursue. That was kind of like the determining factor where I was like, okay, like it doesn't take that long to search up a couple ideas, hit a little scroll, get some inspiration, and then pick up my camera and start recording. So I really think it definitely comes from within. You have to be passionate about it, because again, it would be really tough to like do something and try to be successful if you don't enjoy doing it. So I think the first step would honestly be identifying that this is something that you like to do and are comfortable doing. But beyond that, I would just say, like, you really just got to go all in once you start and make that time. People make time for the things that they love. So if you are going to go for this, like, you'll make time for it. And once you catch a little bit of momentum, then things will start to turn up.
That's a bar, Keith. That's a bar. I didn't want to interrupt. You know what I mean? That's a bar. And here's what I
fire. She's fire, man. All the way around.
You guys are hyping me up.
Here's what I heard. I heard for a sense of purpose, right? I'm someone who's just listening to you for a sense of purpose, right? Because one of the things, and Keith, you can relate to this as well, is I think it's like when you're running, and like let's say you're running the 400 meters. We all know at some point in a big race, you just have to say it's now or never. Like, I have to go. If I don't go at 150, 125 to go, you're just going to get left in the dust, because I know this person over here has got this big kick, and I know this is my moment. And I think if more people had a sense of like, this is my time to shine. And I know I get hyped up, and Keith is probably like, Jay always gets so worked up about this, but I just need more people to just really take hold of their life and really stop scrolling, stop the BS, stop spending your time and your money on crap that you don't need, and pour into yourself. I'm getting down, but I get fired up about this because I get a lot of calls, guys. And I just want more of you guys to be dialed into your life. Don't worry about the people back at home. Do you, dog? And I'm down. I'm sorry. I had to say it though, Keith.
Yeah, honestly, I think, like, just to add on to that, I was told by a lot of wise people that, you know, the time where you're most valuable and you have the most eyeballs on you is when you are a student athlete. And so now that I've spent 6 years in college and I'm at the end of that time, I realized, like, how much more content I would have had if I started taking this seriously sooner. Like, stuff that I would have had to look back on, or maybe how many followers or how big of a community I would have if I started, way back when. So if this can serve as any inspiration for anyone to just, maximize the time that you have as a student athlete, coming from someone who has been through it all at this point, like, now is the time for sure. And people are interested in what you're doing as a student athlete. So don't be afraid to put it out there.
Old people like me, we like to live vicariously through student athletes. So I like following, and even if it's injuries, because it helps me know, it humanizes you. You've done a great job with that. You've rocked it out of the park today. I mean,
thank
to Jay, phenomenal. I love everything about Hayley here.
Yeah, and I just want to build on that, right? And just something that's teachable, that's learnable, that you guys can look at your story, Hayley, is many people forget there is an arc to the story, right? There has to be a demon moment. There has to be a moment when Batman or your great character was down and they go up, right? So
Yeah.
some of you guys that are scared to talk about your injury, you're scared to talk about your struggles, you're scared and you only want to put out a highlight reel. That's a fail. And I'm going to tell you guys why. Because it's not real. It's not who you actually are. And that's why even on this show, I show emotions. I talk about it because I have, a lot of student athletes that I work with, and I just really want them to understand. I know their struggles. I get it. I was a student athlete as well. But I say you're better off being who you are. That is the best version of yourself. You're going to be happier. As you said earlier, you can maintain it, but I just need people to be cool with who they are. And I think that's where a lot of this starts. You got to be okay with you because you're with you all the time. And I think what happens is, and I'm going to go deep here for a second, and I'm going to come out of it. If you're faking it till you make it, that is like the worst thing ever, because what you're saying is something about me isn't right. All right. And here's the thing I love about Hayley. She's going in. I'm going to go back to her content, you guys. And you guys need to follow her. She's at Hayley.Manners on YouTube. You can find her on all the other ones. But I mean, these are just awesome content, right? Graduation vlog. I had another surgery. That's the arc of the story that I'm talking about. Then you've got weekend life. Then you've got virtual athlete Q&A. I love it. UCF homecoming. Keith, I mean, come on. She went to New York City. You guys are traveling. You're taking trips and you're not even documented. But then you come to Keith and I and you want us to fix it. I'm sorry, Hayley. I get emotional about this because I need you guys to lock in.
I love it. And wise words from Jay too. We're getting wise words all over the place. Probably not for me, but wise words all over the place here.
Hayley, what's your reaction? I know I go off on these tangents.
Yeah, I mean, look, people love a good comeback story, and I just feel like I'm still kind of experiencing that right now. I've never really dealt with an injury as severe as the one that I'm overcoming right now, so still navigating that process. But I've followed athletes who, have torn their ACL and have come back from it. They're back playing in games, and all of a sudden they have this insanely supportive community of people who have followed them from the time that they got injured until they're back on the track. And it's been a really cool journey to just see that athlete grow as a person, be able to do different things outside of their sport, and kind of learn about who they are as a person outside of your sport, which I also think could be a conversation for a whole nother day, because that is very important as well. But a lot of the time, injury kind of onsets that for athletes, as devastating as it is. It could be a good growing moment in that sense. But yeah, I mean, I think that any moment in your collegiate journey as it pertains to an athlete, whether it's, academically or a travel trip or some of your hobbies, like that stuff is worth documenting. And definitely, your content is never going to be the same as anyone else's because you're your own unique person. So there's always going to be someone who wants to learn like exactly about you and like what your journey has been like, because it can't be replicated by anyone else. So
Yeah. And I'm going to hit on one point now. I promise I'm going to move on, guys. And the only reason I'm hitting on this is because I run into this a lot. Keith speaks to, I mean, this guy is crisscrossing the country. Seriously, like everything, even a schedule, there's full transparency. We have to, between our schedules. But one of the things that I want to just impress one last time about being yourself, right? If you think about all the great movies that you've ever seen, the hero story, there is an art form to it, right? There's an individual who discovers an extraordinary power. For a student athlete, it's your sprinting, it's your ability to perform, and then they face a huge challenge. Then they overcome the personal obstacle and ultimately emerge as the hero. So if you don't share who you are, then people can't follow your story. And so I want you guys to really focus in on your story and just be who you are. But I'm gonna switch gears up a little bit. I want to talk, we got to get to the bag. All right. So I want to talk about your mindset. You're coming up, you've got a number of months before you graduate. And we want to talk less about like legal status and more about your money mindset, right? I think the future for influencer marketers are really developing their own products, right? We see it with Jake Paul, with Prime Energy, and Better, the marketing company, the betting company that he's got. And we see that with Rihanna. We see that with Kardashian and the, what is it called, Sheer or Shimmer, I'm sure you know. And I think that is the future. And I think they're going to compete with major brands for products. What do you see for yourself in terms of products that you could create, that you own, that you can leverage and make money on? Because I think you're well on that way.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that I've thought about and kind of explored moving forward, because that is ultimately the next step of, creating this community and then figuring out ways that you can leverage it. And I think it honestly just goes back to like, you know, some of the things within your personal niche that you've created that you would be able to leverage. So I know for a lot of student athletes, like a lot of us are interested in kind of just general fitness, and maybe you're somebody who is majoring, I actually did major in kinesiology in undergrad. So, if anyone wanted to keep pursuing that and maybe become a personal trainer, like that status as a D1 athlete who is also a certified trainer, you could start selling like, your marketing one-on-one lessons for, helping people build their strength. Like there's just so many different avenues that you can take it. I think whether you choose to do a service or like a product depends on how much time you have and like what you're willing to put into it. But, I think it just kind of depends on your personality, things that I think would resonate well with your audience based on what they know about you. And so, I mean, just thinking off the top of my head at this point, like I've built a lot of my community on, the injury recovery train and like following that journey. So if I were to, come out with some kind of cool like collaboration with a recovery device company, like let's say Hyperice hits me up and, they want to do a cool merch line of, different products with them. Like, I think that would resonate well with my audience because that's what they know me as, and that's how I've kind of built my connection with them. And so it'd be something that would resonate well. But then on like the businessy side, you just kind of got to think about it. Like I'm a track athlete, like I'm not going to go and partner with the brand to sell like basketball shoes, like you kind of have to think about it strategically like that. And so, yeah, all of that to say something that kind of represents who you are, but also is going to appeal to your audience.
Keith, what do you think about this strategy, and what are your thoughts? You again, this is your wheelhouse.
I love the building your brand. I mean, she has absolutely knocked it out of the park. I'm always about like, how do you leverage NIL into that next step? What's after college? Are you building up that name, that reputation, for marketing, executing on things, making it look good? That's what employers want.
Yeah.
Employers want that kind of stuff. But I do have, I got to mention Influxer one more time, just for thanks for supporting.
Yeah.
And since we have talked a little bit about the international aspect, just a little bit today, just want to talk a little bit about what they do internationally, just because, I mentioned protect. And one of the things I like about what Influxer does for international student athletes is it's a very conservative approach where international student athletes can have their own merch line out there without jeopardizing their F1 status. That is one of the really cool aspects to what Influxer is doing. So got to thank Influxer for the support for the show, the intentional, mindset, to protect international student athletes, help student athletes, develop, merch on top of, any of the brand deals that they might get. Even if that means scheduling them out 6 months down the road. Hayley, I know that stinks, but you're doing it the right way.
I love it. And Keith, first of all, shout out to Influxer as well. Thank you for what you guys do, making these conversations happen. And as we kind of wrap up, I have one question before we get to the end. As you've looked back at your journey so far, and you're also kind of at this point where you have some time left, what is the biggest thing you want to accomplish, right? We talked about that 150 to go in the 400 meters, and you're like, it's now or never. What's your now or never for the next months?
This is a big one. I'm trying to think.
That's why we came. That's why we have you on the show.
Yeah. Okay. My now or never. Let's see. Honestly, it's just like you gotta think about your next steps. I know like we talked a lot about the whole international side of it, but it's a harsh reality that, once you're finished with your sport, if there's not that option of going pro, then you really do have to figure out what comes next. And so I always tell people that, as much as this injury has sucked and that recovery process has been long and tiring, like it's actually given me time to think about what I want to do, once I graduate and once things in college wrap up. And so having that, kind of delay my athletic journey has also kind of sped up things in other areas of my life and kind of given me that, all right, like I got to figure this out now. Otherwise, I'm not going to know if I'm going to get to stay here and, kind of continue to build off of what I've built here. So, yeah, I would say that is kind of like my defining moment in that aspect.
Okay, and I'll share ours, and Keith, you can share yours too as well after this. But one of our things for our now or never, because I think it's also about being intimate and sharing for us. And one of the things I think we've learned is to really try to deliver as much possible value as we can. And one of the things our conversation today is really amplifying stories that are relatable, that help people move past their stories, move past the things that they're struggling with. That is the thing I think we are going to do over the next 30 to 90 days. And that's having a mixture of guests like yourself who are practitioners, who are relatable to student athletes, and then also having on industry experts and having a mixture of that along with our live coaching, coffee with Brand&Athlete that we do to also do that. So that's, I think, the thing we're passionate about. And Keith, I'll let you share. What's the thing, like, what's your now or never thing that you're like, I gotta go, I gotta do this?
I love the word execute. You got to execute. It's great to have ideas in your head, but you got to execute. Oftentimes in life, I think of great ideas, but okay, now or never. I got to execute on this. I got to put this in motion. And what I've loved about this conversation with Hayley today is she's got a plan for execution.
Yeah.
She's out there doing it. She's telling her story. She's getting people. Execute. It's like what coaches tell their players every day in practice: execute. Because you got to execute in practice because when it comes game time, you're ready. And that's what this conversation today has really told me is it. And that there's fire in that wisdom.
Yeah.
Just get out there, execute.
Hayley, it's been great. We always leave with the motivation, right? Like that's one of the things that now or never is like giving people that wisdom, giving them the thing that makes them say, man, I'm gonna stop scrolling, because I think, just being transparent, I think every athlete and every content creator potentially is saying, man, oh, I know I could do that. I could do that next week. I'm gonna do it. Oh, I'm gonna start a spring break. Oh, no. At summer break, I'm gonna have time, be at mama's house. She can cook for me. I can make content. I just keep it real around here, Hayley. What is your thing for athletes who are watching this, who know they need to start, but they keep putting it off? What is your message for them?
Yeah, I mean, if you're not solely motivated by the passion and drive that comes with creating content and building community, just know that there's a stat that you can look up out there of the value of the influencer marketing industry in the next 10 years. And that number is not going down. So keep that in mind. If, you're getting kind of pushback from whoever it may be on like, oh, the influencer stuff is going to die out or it's not sustainable. Like there are hundreds of thousands of people out there who have made it sustainable through different alleyways, whether it's, starting their own business or doing the merch lines or like, eventually going on tours. Like depending on what your personality is, there are so many ways to approach it. And there is lots of money to be given in that industry because, we're always going to have advertising and marketing. And if you're able to kind of communicate your story and your values and have that resonate with other people, they're going to be more likely to, take your word for stuff and buy the stuff that you're selling or whatever it may be. So just know that if you can't find the initial fuel to kind of get up and record because it's like, oh, I'm going to get more followers, just know that like if you're not sure what to do with your life even after athletics, you know, the influencer kind of pipeline is always there if you build that community. So
I love that.
I do too.
Keith, what's your motivational message as we wrap up here?
I think until the next time we get to meet with everybody again, keep building, keep executing, keep doing it. If you've not hit subscribe button, do it. Stay in touch with us. We got lots of good stuff to share with you in the future too.
Yeah. And mine is, if you're sitting there and you're thinking about starting something new, the podcast, the business, whatever it is, stop waiting for that perfect moment. It's not coming, right? Start today. Shift the mindset from I can't to I will. And trust me, the hardest part is getting started, right? We've done this podcast. Hayley is creating content. But once you get started, you're going to learn and you're going to keep growing, and it gets better every single day. And you just wake up thinking, can I get 1% better today? And I think if we focus on that, it's going to be a magical situation for you. So as we wrap up, Hayley, where can people find you? Give us the platforms, the username. And if you're watching this, y'all, hit subscribe and like so that YouTube knows that we're real ones, right? That this stuff matters. That's how you can help us. But most importantly, Hayley, where can people find you?
Yes, you know what? Watching the videos means something, but following and subscribing goes even further. So you can find me, Hayley.Manners, on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads. And my Snapchat is Hey Manners, so Hay Manners. And yeah, I try to be consistent as much as I can. You guys can also find me on LinkedIn just by my full name. I think it's really cool to connect with the entrepreneurial, business-minded athletes on there as well. So yeah, open to any questions. I always try to go through my DMs and answer everybody. So yeah, always here as a resource and happy to help.
Yeah, Hayley, it's just been amazing talking to you. I think your journey, and I was talking earlier about legacy, and I think you're a trailblazer in this space of the Wild Wild West.
Thank you. That means a lot.
I'm gonna let Keith take us to the house.
All right. Wow. I'm just blown away by this whole conversation here, Hayley.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. I have to thank you before Keith says this. I want to thank you. And I'm gonna say this, all right? I know I go off on these tangents, but Keith, this is real. Keith was involved in this. We reach out to people all the time. We don't hear back from people. It's part of the process. That's part of taking those L's, right? I have to tell you, the people who are doing stuff, they always respond. I just got to tell you, all you guys sitting here making excuses, you don't have time, you don't have the equipment, just keep running those. Hayley got back to us on the reel quickly, working with her, and she's actually creating a bunch of content. And I have to give you your flowers while we're here, because I think that says a lot about you and your time and your like who you are as a person.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for watching today. Go follow Hayley. Let's watch her come back from this injury. Let's be a part of that story. And yes, let's go. You know, she's got this. Thank you all so much for watching today. And until next time.
See you guys. Be the story.